So today, guys, this is Totally Leathered, and we have Steve Allum here from a very organic tannery over in Wales. So hello, Steve, introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing? My name's Steve Allum, and I'm from the Welsh Organic Tannery, and it's great to be here to be supporting this podcast tonight.
Yeah, good, excellent. So what's your website address?
So our website address is www.welshorganictannery.co.uk.
Excellent, brilliant. Obviously, you don't sound like you're from Wales. Where are you from originally?
So originally, I'm from Kent, and I run the business with my partner Emma, and she's from Newcastle upon Tyne. We happened to meet at university in Stoke-on-Trent, and we ended up living in Milton Keynes before moving out to Wales in 2003.
Brilliant, excellent. Yeah, that's obviously how I was talking to on Twitter then. Yeah, it was saying,
very much so.
Yeah, the blunder. I don't want to be the blundering Geordie, so you better off to talk to Steve. But right then, turned around and said, "No, let's do this at 3:00." No, please don't. Wait till Steve comes back home at 7. So yeah, it was quite good. So obviously, you're the Welsh, Organic Tannery. What is it that you actually do there? I mean, it's organic. But what is it you're producing? Are you producing skins, or is it hair on hide skins? What is it actually that you're doing?
Certainly. So we only do hair on hide tanning. So our predominant market is really creating sheepskin, goatskin, and deerskin rugs for customers. So what we really set the business up to do was to get smallholders and farmers to get more money out of their livestock, because quite often, people produce animals for meat. The animal goes into the food chain, and the skin is effectively a waste product.
Sure.
So, and what we really want to do is to enable farmers and smallholders to get more value out of their, out of the hard work that they put in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, it's like you say, the animals are there for the food chain, and other purposes as well. And it's those skins, which is going to, what would happen to those skins? They're just going to pile up. I mean, are they going to pile up and pile up? Or are we going to create diseases and that sort of thing? I presume with it as well. And it's the last sort of thing you want, I presume, isn't it? With these skins piling up, or are you going to bury them, and then what happens?
Exactly. So I mean, and we've noticed a big change in the market and the business since we've been running, because we started in sort of 2017, 2018, and obviously since then we've had Brexit. Quite up to Brexit happened, a lot of the skins were sent to Europe to be tanned chemically in Poland and Eastern Europe, but that's now stopped happening. So actually, a lot of the abattoirs who are taking the animals in for the meat trade now have a waste product that they are having to pay to get rid of.
Yes.
Because it is an animal byproduct, it's a class 1 animal waste, so they do have to pay to get rid of that, and it generally is incinerated.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do is to encourage people to get their skins back and have them turned into rugs, which they can then sell as extra income or for personal use.
Yeah. It's like we did a podcast with Mike Redwood, and Mike was telling us, like in America, that the guys, what they're having to do a lot there in some of the places, they're having to literally bury the skins, because of obviously with the guys that are sort of like your animal rights guys, your vegan sort of following, and all this sort of thing, sort of building momentum. They're sort of putting people off having this natural collagen fiber. At the end of the day, it's a natural product. It's a byproduct of the actual meat chain. And they're having to pay to bury these skins. I think he said $5 a skin. They're having to pay to bury these things. And like Mike said, it's sacrilege, because they're burying a perfectly good product that is far better for our environment than a plastic vegan material. And it's because of that sort of movement that's creating that sort of shift in things, which is quite sad, really, because they're looking at I think they're looking at it the wrong sort of perspective, because it's obviously producing like plastics and things is far more dangerous than it is using a natural organic material, especially when you're doing it in an organic, like you're tanning it in an organic way with like a sort of veg tanning process. It's completely natural, so that's even better than the sort of chromium tanning stuff and things like that, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, and we've very much designed the business to be carbon negative. So we have solar panels on the roof to provide all our electricity, and all the heat for both the water for washing the skins, but then also for drying the skins once they've been tanned, comes from a big renewable heat initiative log boiler.
All right.
And the wood for that comes from our own woodlands. And for every tree that we take down to turn into firewood, we plant 20 more trees. So we're trying all the time to be, as sustainable as
Sure.
possible in
Yeah,
terms of a
that's really good.
business.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's really good. It's one of the things I noticed when we go to Scotland. They're like obviously taking all the trees down, but you can see where they're sort of like replanting them. They're sort of planting them in stages, even though they're cold, like a big area. But they sort of plant them in stages, so they're growing at different intervals all the time. Even in the same sort of plantation areas, which is something that I've noticed in this country. It's like I notice when I go to Wales. Again, you see an abundance of trees like you do in Scotland, but you don't see it really in England.
Right.
And again, there doesn't seem to be that sort of sustainability with sort of trees and things here, but there is in Wales and there is in Scotland. And you do get that in Europe as well, that sort of sustainability with things, which people understand. So, it is about being green. There's a lot of things we're doing at the moment to try to improve what we do with all our chemicals and natural water-based products anyway. But there's a lot of, there's 2 or 3 chemicals that we have, which are solvents. And we've actually worked out a process now where we can get rid of 2 of those products and actually have them water-based, which is going to be one of the first companies in the world to achieve what we've achieved, which is quite good. It's taken us years to do it, and a lot of thousands and thousands of pounds of investment, but we've got there in the end after many years of trials and sort of tears and heartache. But it's worth it in the end, because we're protecting our environment. We're trying to be as green as we possibly can. It's our packaging's changing, everything's changing, as a company in the sort of leather care industry and repair industry, because we're repairing, so we're helping to sort of preserve things. It's something like people with rugs, people send them to us and we can repair them, if they're stitched together and things. So it's stuff like that we're doing, which isn't good for your trade because we're repairing them, but it doesn't sort of help you with you sort of selling that sort of side of things as well. So but it's good. I mean, I like the sort of organic side of it. It's obviously with you sort of doing the tannery. What did you do before that, with you only just starting it a few years ago?
Certainly. So, I mean, when we met at university, I was actually studying environmental science, and my wife Emma was studying biology. So we both got sort of an environmental and science background.
Yeah.
But before that, we moved down here in 2003, and we were really looking for a business that was unique, that we could do on the small holding. We've only got 15 acres here, so it's not financially viable to have enough livestock on that amount to support us. So we were looking for a business, and to have from the farm. And a lot of our neighbours were doing like holiday cottages, glamping, and we saw that market getting quite saturated. So for us, we wanted a business that was very predominantly mail order, that people could, away from send us raw skins that are salted, we could then turn them around and then send them back to us. So it's very much an online business. And my background, since leaving university, although I did some environmental work for a while, I've worked in sort of a defense and telecoms industry for the last 20 years. So one of the things that I've been able to do for the community is, as the business has been here, is to bring in new technology for the community to help connectivity. So about 8 or 9 years ago, I did a microwave broadband system. Everyone in the area got 30 meg broadband. And then just recently, actually last week, we just completed the first full fibre to the property rollout of 1 gigabit fibre to every farm in the area.
Oh, excellent. That's good. Yeah, that's very good. Especially if you've got that knowledge to do it. It makes it quite easy to do, doesn't it? When you've got the ability.
It certainly helps to understand the language.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not something I'd understand, that's for sure. It's like, I think if it's like with electricity and plumbing, I'd end up with that water through my electric, and it just wouldn't work out right. I can tell you. We all have our own forte in life, and it's not sort of something that I could sort of get involved with. It always baffles me, that sort of side of it. But it's like some people say, when I'm doing what I'm doing, you baffle me. So it's
exactly
same sort of thing all the way around. So obviously, so that's your full-time sort of job that you've got there. With the tannery, what do you find is the most interesting part of it?
So, I mean, with regards to the tannery, it's purely the variation. You never know when you open a box what you're going to get. Because customers send us skins. A salted skin will last for up to 2 years. And currently at the moment, and we're here now in June. We're just working our way through sort of January and February. The skins that were sent to us in January and February, because pretty much everything comes in between September and February.
Sure.
Because that's the time most people are sort of killing out the animals. So
Yep.
so it literally is a surprise every time you open a box.
Sure.
And and it's for me, the interesting part is a lot of, we would do like a brown sheepskin or a black sheepskin, and there's a lot of people say, oh, so have you dyed those? And you're like going, well, no, that's the natural fleece of the animal. And
Yeah.
a lot of people think, have a preconception that all sheep are, white fluffy things.
Yeah.
So it's actually having that. There's I think nearly 280 breeds in the UK,
Yes.
and the diversity and the richness of that product is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got all the goat species, and we've started doing deer as well.
Yep. Yeah. Again, as I say, it's a lot of different species with all of those three. So,
Yes.
quite their bid. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how many different species there are with most animals, to be fair. I mean, it's the same with like chickens and everything else. I mean, it's just that there's an abundance of different species with them. And I mean, it's like
we don't tan chickens, by the way, though.
we do get chicken. We do get people who think like things made out of like chicken legs, believe it or not. I mean, they're obviously only small and they're all sewn together. Sure. Like little sort of gadgets or little wallets where they're all sewn together. So I mean, it's surprising what we do get in for repair, where we've got to repair stuff. So it's quite amazing what we get through. So obviously, with the skins, people are obviously preparing us. How are they doing that, and what is the process to do that once they've obviously got that skin from the animal? And the meat's obviously gone into the meat chain, and other products are going into other factors of, whether it's cosmetics or whatever. What happens to the skin?
So people will either get the skin back from the abattoir, and the first thing they do is salt them. So you use standard table salt, and you literally put a thick coat of salt on it.
Yep.
And you leave that for a couple of weeks, and then you would scrape that salt off and apply some fresh salt.
Yeah.
Once that's been salted for another couple of weeks, then really you roll the skin up, so all the salt's on the inside.
Yep.
And then you can package that in, and send it to us. All the information is on the website, including the instructions on how to salt the skin.
All right, okay.
And we even provide packaging labels, and all the paperwork of how you get your skins back from the abattoir. So everything's available on the website.
Yep.
But also, if there are any questions, we're happy for people to give us a bell or drop us an email, so that we can walk you through that process. Because we do realise that this. I mean, we were the same when we first did our first skins in 2011. We'd never done it before.
Sure.
And it is a new thing that people have, started to realise there's actually some value in what was formerly a waste product.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously some skins are frozen straight away, aren't they? And I mean, it's with the ones that you're getting, they're just obviously taking all the fatty materials off, and then literally just salting them, and that's it. There's no other sort of processes going on to them. Nothing.
No.
Very
nothing whatsoever.
Yep.
So I mean, the only thing we do ask is that if people are sending us skins, is because we are an organically certified process, we're not allowed to use harsh chemicals.
Yep.
So for example, a lot of people use a lot of stop markers, especially on sheep.
Yep.
And we do get some skins that kind of, we open them up and they look a bit like Joseph's Technicolor Dream Coats, where they've like, and they've still got like number 25 on the side from lambing, and the problem with that is we can't always get that out.
Sure.
So if you think you are going to be sending that animal to be made into a rug, then clearly, maybe put a small dot on its head, or, somewhere where it won't be all over the fleece.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. I mean, obviously, that's not going to help when they do that, I must admit. So they just obviously salt it, like you say, for a couple of weeks, scrape all that old salt off, put new salt on. Do they have to leave that for a period, or they just completely roll that up at that time?
No, they can roll it up at that time and send it down to us. I mean, it's going to be in our salt store for a good month or so before we get around to it. Like I say, we're 4 months behind on orders at the moment, just because of the sheer volume of work that we have. So in terms of the process, the salted skin would then come to us. We would then log it in, and then when we bring it out of the salt store, we scrape the salt off. And the first thing we do is put a unique identifying tag on it. So a small little kind of an ear clip tag that goes into the side of the skin. So then we know that as that skin goes through the process, we know who it belongs to.
Sure. Yeah.
Because after a while, we get nearly 1,000 white sheepskins a year. We want to make sure that you are getting your skin back.
Yeah.
So the skin gets tagged. And then the first thing we do, we visibly inspect it for any damage. And if there is any marker, we are allowed to use a solvent-free degreaser,
Yep.
that we try and get as much off as possible.
Sure.
And then from there, it goes into a washing machine.
Yep.
Where we'll rinse it, we'll wash it, we'll rinse it again, and we wash it in a ecological washing powder.
Yep.
And all the wastewater from that washing machine goes through a reed bed that I designed.
Yep.
So it's like a 3-stage reed bed, and then that overflows into our own pond on our small holding. And our animals drink out of it. That's where our ducks live, and that's how confident we are that there are zero contamination in that coming out.
And obviously you're getting things from the ducks, I presume, as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So after the skin has then been rinsed and washed, we then put it into a pickle solution, which is a salt solution, and it will sit there for 24 hours. And then after that, we then take it out of the pickle solution, put it back in the washing machine, spin all the pickle out. And then the first job to do is to flesh the skin. So we have to, although most people have taken the large layers of fat off, you really need to take that first layer of skin off, so that the tannin, which is a bark tannin, because we use a vegetable tannin solution, can actually penetrate the skin. So we have a very sharp wheel, which is called a fleshing wheel. It's a bit like the salami slicer you might see at the supermarket, where they do the very thin slices. But you run the skin across the fleshing wheel, and that just prepares the skin to accept the tannin. So from there, we then take that skin that's been fleshed into a tanning tank, where it will sit for at least a week. And every day we build up the concentration of tannin. So when you've got leather, it's a bit like cooking meat. If you turn up an oven to really, really hot, it'll go black on the outside, but be raw in the middle. So skin's very much the same. What we want to try and do is build that tannin concentration up slowly, so it penetrates into the skin over a course of a week.
Sounds good. And then obviously, what is the full how long does the full process take from arriving with you to a skin ready to go back?
So a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks, because once they've been in the tanning tank for a week, we have to check to make sure that the tannin has penetrated all the way through the skin. You will notice if you look at our price list, we do charge more for rams and male goats, mainly because it is true that men do have thicker skin, and that it takes longer for the tannin to actually penetrate into the skin. So once we check it after a week. If all the tannin has penetrated all the way through, then we're good to go. We bring it out, and then we rinse the tannin out of the skin before we peg it out on drying boards, put it into the drying room, before we then buff it and comb it before the skin is sent back out. However, if the tannin hasn't penetrated all the way through to the middle of the skin, we will leave it in for another week, or until such time that it has penetrated fully.
Cool. So obviously then with like a standard tanning, like say on a car seat, what's the do you know the timescale differences between a car seat and like a veg tan thing? Is it something like minutes and days, or is it hours and days?
Certainly. So if you use a chemical process, so that normally takes 2 to 3 days. Whereas, minimum we take 2 to 3 weeks. So we are very hands-on. It's a very physical process. We don't go to the gym. So it's very physical process, but it does take longer. But on the flip side, you get a much more durable product. And the trick is, and a lot of people, when they look at a sheepskin or a goatskin rug, the first thing they do is look at the fleece side. Well, the first thing we do is actually turn the rug over and look at the leather side. If the leather is white, then generally it's been chemically tanned. It'll also be very soft and very flexible. Whereas if you turn it over and it's brown in color, then it will be vegetable tanned or bark tanned like we do. The leather will probably be thicker. But also the other beauty of that is that all our rugs have been through the washing machine at least 9 times. All our rugs are fully machine washable. Now,
Right.
if you try and wash some of the chemical rugs,
Yep.
they can go quite hard and, like a chamois leather.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Sometimes you then have to add water to kind of reform them.
Reform it.
So we do have a more durable process that is actually better in terms of it is fully machine washable.
Yeah. So, and what is it that makes them machine washable? Is it because you machine washed it in the first place, or is it just the natural veg tanning process?
It's a mixture of the two. The fact that our process, as I say, each skin goes through the washing machine at least 9 times.
Yep.
But then also as well, the fact that it is veg tanned and it's all natural,
Yep.
then those you can wash those without any problem at all.
Okay. Obviously, care for the skins once somebody, because obviously you sell them, don't you? Anyway, which I understand. You have like several people make different sort of things and bags and footstools and all sorts of things that make them for you. What is the sort of care process for one of these natural skins that's a rug? Brushing it, combing it. Is there any sort of solutions they can put on it, or is it best to leave it as it is natural, or what do you advise?
So generally speaking, I mean, we just say if they get really dirty, you can wash them in a washing machine on a low wash, sort of on a woolen cycle. All the instructions are on our website.
Yep.
But generally speaking, day to day, just give it a brush with a dog brush or a gentle hoover on a low setting.
Yep.
But generally speaking, the leather on the back, you don't have to really do anything with at all. I mean, you can use a natural based oil if you want to.
Yep.
But generally speaking, people, have been using our rugs for years and not had to treat them at all.
Okay, that's good. So something, I mean, it's like we obviously have like protection creams and things that we put on for like the modern car leathers, and they're great for things like your sort of veg tan, especially like your Mulberry handbags and your sort of natural veg tan, or like your saddling leather. It's great for that because it soaks into it and keeps it soft and supple. So something like that, could that sort of thing be used on it, or would you just say just don't bother?
I'll be honest with you, we've never tried.
Okay.
We've never had the need to because all
Yeah.
our rugs are stayed so soft and supple. Because when they come out the drying room, we buff them hard on
Yeah.
on a grit wheel,
All
so
right.
we get them down to a very fine suede.
Yep.
So they don't when they leave us, they're very flexible. And we've been running now for we did our first skins sort of 2017. So in 4 years, they haven't gone hard yet.
Right, okay, that's good. Yeah. So obviously the back of it isn't like some of the rugs I've seen. The backs of them are like very sort of smooth and, like you say, white. I've predominantly known them as a white. So obviously they're a chemically tanned,
Yes.
hair on hide. So are you sort of buffing yours so it's more like a suede finish on there rather than the sort of smooth finish that I've seen them when they've been chemically tanned?
So when the skin comes out the drying room, they're actually quite hard and crispy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we use the buffing wheel to actually get them that soft suede end finish.
Yeah.
And the reason that there's a difference with the chemical tanned skins is that they'll probably still have little bits of fat and connective tissue on,
Yeah.
because they don't always flesh the chemical skins by hand. They use
Sure.
large machines.
Yeah.
So that's why you sometimes see the little bobbly bits on the back.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's good. Obviously, I've sort of had a look at your website, and you're talking on there about there's sort of possibly over 95% of the skins are exported to be treated chemically in uncontrolled environments. That's quite an amazing amount. Is that just sort of hair on hides what you're doing, or is that sort of all skins in general?
So that's mainly hair and hide.
Yeah.
And I think what most of it comes down to is cost
Yes.
and time.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, when we set this up and as a business, and we said to everyone we were building a tannery, it was just like it was there were quite a lot of local objections because in the old days, the tanneries used to collect the human waste and
Yeah.
the animal waste from the
Yep.
streets.
Yep.
And then basically then they were out of town for a reason,
Yep.
because they were quite, I mean, I don't know if you've been to the tanneries in Morocco, for example, they give you mint leaves to put up your nose.
Yeah.
So there are quite pungent places.
Sure.
But literally the tannery is 20 meters from our house.
Yeah.
So there's no way we were going to create anything that was going to be offensive, that's so close to our house. So
we have one that's from where our factory is in Hull. We have one that must be less than a mile away.
right.
And it depends on what direction they do. A lot of wet blues, so it depends on the direction of the wind. Sometimes you can smell the tannery because obviously they have an abundance of skins there.
Sure.
So you can actually smell that sort of flesh that skin. Sometimes it's I don't mind it. I mean, because obviously we work in the leather industry anyway, so I mean, I find it quite fascinating. And some people are like, what on earth is that smell? And we just say it's dead donkey land, because of the smell. And they're like, what do you mean? And it's like, it's just a joke, okay? It's not really dead donkeys. It's just a joke because it's a tannery. So but it's amazing, to go by and see them with all the wet blue skins out there in the yard where they're processing them and doing various things. But the tannery's been there for quite some time, and I mean, they were quite well known. I think Mike Redwood's one of the guys that worked there as a director at one point, who he was like, Mike was, I don't know whether you know of Mike. He's actually quite a well-to-do person. He's very much for obviously sustainability and things, and obviously protecting the industry, but understands the sort of implications of over farming and everything else, with the land and stuff like that. And I mean, he's from Leather Naturally and stuff like that. And if it's something that you're not involved with, it might be worth sort of getting involved with that side of it, because it's quite a good organization to get involved with. You can actually be a member of UK Leather, Leather UK as it is, and we're a member of it. And it's actually quite a good organization because they're there to promote the sort of the skins. And if you're not a member of it, it's worth being a member of it because they're building this sort of big awareness up and publicity for companies, including tanneries and stuff like that around the whole of the UK and the world. So it's actually quite a good thing. So it's worth sort of maybe connecting up with those guys if you haven't already. I mean, you might. Do you know?
We already have done, and we are members of Leather UK.
All right, okay, that's
so
good.
yeah, so
good. Yeah. That's good. So you know all about that. So yeah, that's good. So that's good. So what have we got here? Obviously, what is it? What items do you obviously sell bags and things? Are any of these made in house? Do you make any items in house?
So the only items we actually make in house at the moment are our goatskin cushion range.
Yep.
So other than that, we in house we just do the sheepskin rugs, the goatskin rugs, and then the deerskin rugs.
Yeah.
We do have 2 collaborations running at the moment. We have a very talented local lady who's got her own leather workshop called Coterie Leather. And she makes our handbags, and we've made aprons with her as well, with our logos on for trade shows. So we do a lot of work with her. And then there's another lady down on the south coast that runs a furniture company called Unique. U as in EWE. And then she makes these amazing footstools, which are sheep. And so she started out and basically was doing hand carving from carousel horses. And she basically makes these amazing sheep heads, and we send her our organically tanned skins, and then she's made a range of footstools for us.
Yeah, I was looking at the footstools. They're very interesting, and they're actually quite nice. So
yes,
they're very unique indeed. So I mean, certainly some skill there, especially with the handbags and things. So the lady that's making the handbags, then sort of not far from you, there, she's literally making them from scratch. Is that from the hides that you're supplying her?
Yeah, so she does 2 things. We obviously supply her some of the hair and hide skins, but also as well she uses waste offcuts from the leather industry. So she predominantly uses a veg tan leather, and she goes up to Northampton and buys sort of the ends of rolls and bits that people can't use. And then she runs workshops down here in West Wales where people can either make bags or aprons, and we've had some customers that have had skins tanned with us and then incorporated that into, say, a handbag design. But they've gone and made it in the workshop at Coterie Leather.
All right.
So yeah, and at one point we were working hand in hand with a local goat meat company. And we were taking their skins, and then we were turning into hair and hide products, and then we were working with Coterie Leather to create a range of handbags. So the whole animal and the whole life cycle was all within about 8 miles from the tannery.
Oh, that's quite good then. So whereabouts in the UK do all the skins come from? Is it all over, or is it just locally where you are in Wales, or is it all different parts?
Certainly. So it's, like I said earlier, we are a fully mail order company. So literally, we get skins as far away from the Hebrides, from London, from Kent, right to North Wales, South Wales. Obviously, we have a number of local customers that drop things off by hand. But yeah, we do get customers just sending us stuff in the post, because they send it to us in the post, we turn it around, and we send them back in the post.
Excellent. So what sort of average number of skins do you sort of get through, from a customer? Is this sort of things that they're doing just to have something at home, or is it something they're doing commercially to resell these? And, what sort of quantities do you get through at a time?
That really varies. I mean, probably our biggest customer is an organic farm in West Sussex,
Yep.
and they probably send us, I don't know, 150, 200 skins a year.
Yep.
And they are doing it very much for the commercial reasons, because they send it to us, we send it back as a sheepskin, and they then sell that on in their farm shop.
Yep.
We do get a number of customers that send us one or two, because they're either doing it for the first time, or they have a small holding themselves and they want a couple for their house. But I mean, generally speaking, most customers send us between, say, 2 and 10 skins at a time.
Okay, that's quite good. Yeah. So obviously, are these people sort of doing is it just for rugs they're doing them for, do you know, or are they converting them also to handbags and other things?
So at the moment, I think 99% of our customers really just keep them as rugs.
Yeah.
So as I say, we have had a few people who have wanted specific, goat skins or lamb skins to create into gun slips or into handbags. But I would say about 95% of our customers keep everything as rugs.
As rugs, yeah. Because obviously during the pandemic, we saw all the things with, especially in Wales, with I think it was the goats coming out and coming into the villages and eating all the things. So
yeah, that was up in North Wales. Yeah,
it was in North Wales. Yeah, I saw all that, and it was quite. It was quite unusual. I mean, during the pandemic, because I mean, we're on the coast, but we've got to go through the countryside to get into Hull, and it was amazing seeing the amount of wildlife. I think it must have been really strange for them, because I'd never seen so much wildlife on the road like I had during the pandemic, because there was obviously no traffic around, and you could tell that there was this huge influx of more animals, because obviously they weren't obviously being killed because there wasn't cars hitting them or vans or trucks hitting them. There wasn't obviously your usual sort of shooting games and things going on, so those sort of things weren't getting sort of shot or whatever. And you could see that the deers were breeding and breeding and breeding. And it's like pheasants were breeding like crazy and rabbits were going like crazy. And you sort of then start to think, well, if that just carried on and we didn't do anything, we'd end up getting overrun by animals. You sort of got to have that sort of cycle, haven't you, to keep things very naturally balanced, because if there gets too many of them, I suppose eventually they're going to end up eating all the vegetation, and the next people left is us.
Yeah.
So you've got to bear that in mind, because I mean, animals would adapt. It's a bit like Morocco, the animals up in the tree, the goats up in the trees with their funny sort of claws that they have, to sort of get up to climb at the trees to get all the nice red berries and things out of the trees. So it's interesting. The animals can adapt over the years to sort of do different things, can't they, at the end of the day?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So but it always worries me with particularly with the vegan movement. If we were to stop eating meat completely, animals are going to breed. It's like, how do you go and tell a lion to stop eating that hyena? You know what I mean? And I sort of find it. I always find it quite frustrating. I'm one of those where I sort of look at the other side of it. I totally disagree with people that obviously harm or abuse an animal deliberately. And if I see anybody doing it, I would always report them, even though I'm in the leather industry. It's I love animals completely, but we're preserving what we're doing. But I've always sort of been baffled with the guys, which I understand they've got a reason to be, vegans or whatever, or animal movement people. But how do you ever stop a lion from eating a zebra, or attacking a alligator, or, eating anything? You can't stop them doing that. And you can't just walk up to the lion and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Lion, you've got to turn in to be a vegan." You can't eat another animal. It's natural, isn't it? And at the end of the day, we're all animals, really. In theory, it's where we come from. And we all eat meat. And I think if you were to stop eating meat, I don't think it would be very good for you. In fairness, it's never good to stop eating meat in its entirety. Yeah. So it's always a very interesting one. Obviously, talking about animals and things, have you done anything else other than the sort of sheep, goat, and the deers? Have you done any strange animals?
We've certainly had a lot of requests.
Yep.
I have to say, a lot of the requests we can't do because of either legal issues, or you sometimes wonder where people have 10 hyena skins, where they've even got them from. So my wife Emma does keep an interesting kind of book of all the strange requests we've had. But obviously there's a lot of things we can't do due to overseas wildlife issues, legal reasons, wildlife protection rules in the UK. And to be honest with you, we've really set the process up to do deer, goat, and sheep. So that is our sweet spot. So actually to try, I mean, I've tried doing a rabbit, but a rabbit skin is so thin, it's quite hard to flesh, and so it does get, for us, it's about turnover. It's about getting the skins, in batches so that we can put them through the process. And we understand how we do that with, sheep, goat, and deer. So we're sticking to that for now. We have done an alpaca, but that was quite a lot of work. But I mean, and the biggest thing we don't do is cattle. We do get probably 2 or 3 requests a week saying, do you do cattle skins? Because we want a really nice, big cow skin rug. We don't. And the main reason we don't is just due to we are limited at the moment by, physical strength. And if you've ever tried to pick up a dead cow skin, it's remarkably heavy. They probably weigh somewhere region 40, 50 kilos. In terms of just skin, you really start needing kind of block and tackle or large hydraulic machinery to move the skins around.
Roughly sort of what size are you talking on those? So obviously if you've got the bull as well, it's going to be even bigger, isn't it?
Huge. And with some of the modern farming methods, with the double muscles and the animals now are absolutely immense. So we're kind of sticking to what we know. It's going very well at that stage for us, so we're not planning on moving into cattle at the moment. Also as well, when you start looking at cattle, there is sort of a rule of thumb in the leather industry that a cattle hide takes 1 year and a day to tan. So it's got to be in a tanning solution for over 1 year. So for us, if you've got to tie all your resources up for 1 year, it's a bit like aging a fine whiskey, isn't it? You put it in a barrel and you see it in 18 years time. Well, in the meantime, you've got to make some gin to make some money, So it's one of those things. So at the moment, we have had some strange requests, but we're just very much sticking to the sheep, the goats, and the deer.
Because obviously it's CITES, isn't it? Is it governed? What can come in and everything else. I mean, because it can make it extremely expensive. I mean, we've sometimes asked different companies in France and things, and there's a company we deal with in France and in New York they've got a tannery in France and in New York as well, and we sometimes buy sort of unusual things there just to have to show people, just to sort of talk to them about various skins. And it's when you're sort of getting into sort of things like alligators and stuff like that, the price suddenly starts skyrocketing. From like a caiman, we've got, you're talking reasonable cost, maybe £100. But when you start getting into sort of very exclusive things like alligators and crocodiles and things, the skins suddenly go to like £700-800. It's amazing how much it goes up because of all the CITES regulations. And then you've got the certificates to bring them in, which adds another £200 or £300 to it. And then obviously all the import duties and everything else. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you've got like an alligator skin and it's 1,200 quid. And we're like, forget it, it ain't worth it just to show people an alligator skin. Just to have it sat there doing nothing with it, it's just pointless. But some of them are quite interesting that, that we have in our sort of studio where we do all our training, because obviously we run the training courses to repair. So we just have them there as points of interest because people are quite fascinated with how some of these skins feel and don't realize that we have a shark skin and it literally feels like a cow skin. It's quite interesting because most people are like, well, is it not scaly? But not really. When you think about a shark when it's swimming, it's not really scaly like a fish, is it? And they're like, no, I suppose not. No. And but you don't think of those things. It's brown. It just feels like a cow skin that's not been painted on the surface. So it just feels like a natural sort of cow skin or a calf skin. It's really strange. It's quite interesting. So obviously talking about cows, what about calf skin with them obviously being much smaller?
You'll be surprised. The calf skin isn't actually that much. They are still significantly bigger than a sheep or a goat. So all our, generally speaking, as we go through the process, when all our drying boards are about 4 foot, Could we literally get a sheet of 8x4 and chop it in half?
Yeah.
So there is, we always have to think about the size of everything as it goes through the process.
Yeah.
So at this time, like I say, we'll just stick to what we know, because the business is going very well on that. I mean, who knows? I'd never say never, but at this time, we'll stick with what we know.
Certainly some weight though, with a cow skin being that sort of,
Yes.
you wouldn't be able to, I mean, I think it'd be physically too far demanding to try to pick up several of those in a day and put into barrels and things,
Oh, exactly. And even just getting them into the washing machine would be
Yeah.
like probably a 2-man lift. So, and then you could probably only get one in the washing machine at a time, and then the washing machine would be out of balance. And so, I think if we were ever going to do it, we'd have to give it a lot of thought, and really, we designed the building because it's a purpose-built building. We've really designed it around, sort of a 4-foot size,
Sure.
rather than larger equipment.
Yeah. And obviously with the deer, what sort of size are those?
So we don't do the larger deer species. We don't do red deer, because they can get quite large as well.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, so we literally just do like some of the smaller species, like the fallow or the muntjacs.
Yep.
So or the Chinese water deer. So because they are the smaller species of the deer world.
Yeah. And are the Chinese water deers here, or are they over in China, as the name predicts, or am I just thinking?
No. So you do get those in this country as well.
Yep. And what do they look like out of interest? Are they, obviously I know what the red deers and things like those, those sort of look like, so they're obviously quite big, but what does the sort of Chinese one look like?
So it's probably about a little bit smaller than a fallow deer.
Okay. Yes, and nothing too large. And what sort of weight are those skins in when you're sort of dealing with those?
They're not too bad actually, because the skin isn't too thick. So so they're not too bad.
Yeah. So excellent. Obviously, how long does it take to tan a skin? You've already told us, but obviously with the cow skin, like you're saying, it's a year and a bit. Is that obviously for vegetable tanning?
We believe so, and we've never really fully investigated it, but it just seems to be everyone we talked to about cow skins, everyone says, oh, you got to tan a cow skin for a year and a day. So again, it's kind of put us off a bit in terms of looking at those kind of options.
I was going to say, when you're talking like a few weeks to do what you're doing now, to sort of have, as you quite rightly say, to have that tied up for a year,
yes,
it's going to put everything back so far, and you've almost sort of got to build a separate building and a separate unit and to try to run just the cow side of it, and then it's trying to manage all that, isn't it, I suppose, at the end?
Exactly, yes. So and I think if you're going to do cows, you wouldn't do a building like we've done here. You'd do like a large kind of industrial warehouse, that you could basically just drive straight in with a forklift truck and a mat bro, and basically do it all by machinery.
That's what I was going to say. It's because of the weight of them. You'd never be able to keep lifting those all day long and dipping them in tanks and washing machines and things. So you'll end up with like almost like a cripple with your back and stuff. It'd be terrible.
Indeed.
So obviously, what are the future plans with the business?
So we're one of those. We've been going 4 years now, and we're very much at the crux now. It's like a lot of businesses. You get to a point where we're doing about 1,500 skins a year at the moment, and we could probably we have capacity in the building to double that. So we've got the plumbing. When we built the building, we put the plumbing in for say 3 washing machines. We're only using 1 washing machine at the moment. We could put another set of tanks in, or we could put bigger tanks in. But at the moment, it's always that kind of expand. But there's a cost of expanding versus keeping where you are at the moment and actually providing that niche quality, because the last thing we ever want to do is to drop the quality of our product, because we are a high quality individual product. So the honest answer is we're still finding our way through that. We have had some amazing success last year where during the pandemic we got approached by Netflix. Because a lot of the big TV dramas now, or big TV programs that are being made, are all period dramas, or they're like Game of Thrones, or the one we supplied all the sheepskin rugs for was a program called Curse, which is all about King Arthur. So what they're looking for is rugs that can that aren't chemically tanned, and they look natural
Yeah.
to go on TV shows. So you never know really sometimes, where you can have the best business strategies in the world, but stuff happens sometimes. You never quite know where it's going to go. So but yeah.
It's good. It's good that you've sort of gone down that route with it. So it's quite interesting. Obviously, if there was sort of like one piece of advice that you could give yourself that you now know when you started in business, what would that be?
Ooh. So I think really it's, don't say yes to everything, and really stick to your guns around what we're going to do, because it's better to be confident about what you're doing and deliver a really great product,
Yeah.
rather than try and be too diverse and say yes to everything, and then for things not to go so well.
Sure.
So really stick to what you know.
Yep. And obviously, like you say, it's sticking to the sort of three sectors that you're doing there. The sheep, the goat, and the deer.
Yes.
Another one I just thought of, which obviously isn't that big, and it's quite long, but pig.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's a way to good cracking, isn't it? So,
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
so
I've seen like a lot of pig hats, made out, especially in America. They make them out of hats and things.
yeah,
So that sort of thing is, and they're all natural. Obviously,
yes,
you can't really, not really wise having a hair on hide pigskin because it's very, very wiry. But
exactly.
uh,
So
but it's just another one I thought of. It's just that we have one in that we use as a demonstration to show people. But it's been, it's been obviously, it's a semi-aniline one, so it's obviously been dyed through and then had a partial pigmentation lacquer on the surface to obviously even out the colouring.
right.
I mean, is that sort of something else that you would ever
Um,
think of?
I'll be 100% honest. We've never even thought about doing pigs right now.
Yeah,
So as I say with anything, never say never. But
yeah,
at this time, I don't think so.
yeah. Yeah, just another interesting one. I just suddenly thought of it there, and it's like just trying to think of other animals for you, and it's just like, I wonder what about pig. So yeah, because it's not too big, is it? So
No.
but yeah, some interesting things there. But yeah, I like the fact that it's all everything is completely organic. And you say the certificate. What's the certification you've got there with the business?
So we work with the Biodynamic Association, and we have a full organic certification. So what that means is, if someone that runs an organic farm, or runs organic livestock, they can send us skins. We'll put that in the process,
Yep.
and then when they come out, they will be stamped as organic. If you run a small holding, I mean, our small holding itself, our livestock aren't actually registered organic.
Yep.
But so what then, they'll go through the same process, but they'll be stamped as natural.
Yep.
But it's the same process, using exactly the same tannins, exactly the same bark extracts. But yeah, so that's the way we look at it from the organic point of view.
Yeah. So from like an organic to a natural. So if you wanted to have like an organic animal, is it just the type of feed that they're fed? Is it something different, that side of it, or is it something different?
So it's, where if you have an organic flock,
Yeah.
of sheep, for example, then obviously you have to be either registered by the Biodynamic Association or the Soil Association, and there are a number of criteria that you have to meet, and you can get inspected. So there are a number of areas where perhaps some of the wormers and some of the antibiotics you might have to use less of.
Yep.
So that there are, it's a lot more stringent around how you keep that animal.
Yeah.
However, 99% of all the sheep in the UK are pretty much organic anyway.
Yep.
However, they're just not certified as organic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only time I've worked with sheep really was when I lived down south in Berkshire, and I remember I was around Kimpbury, Hungerford area, and I remember a friend of ours had like a small holding, and he was an ex-SAS soldier, so he didn't have all of his marbles fully with him there, because he was a bit eccentric in that, because it sort of sends you almost doolally being the training that the SAS guys go through. And I remember having to go in one day because his sons were all away in London and stuff. And I remember having to go in one day and try to help them because they'd rung us and said, you need to go in and help Dad and dip the sheep.
Right.
That was terrible. The sheep were just trying to dip them through into the baths that we were trying to create. And it was just going everywhere. It was covering me, and it was trying to obviously dipping the sheep for reasons, obviously because of the maggots and stuff like that you get on them if you don't look after them properly with the heat, especially with the heat and things. It can get into the fleece and things. But it was just, it was one of the worst things I think I'd ever done, was to dip those sheep. And I ended up getting dipped myself, trying to get the sheep in the dip, and it was just, it was terrible. But
well, at least you wouldn't have had any flies on. You look on the bright side.
Yeah. Definitely. But it's certainly, it's certainly an experience doing it. It's something I've remembered, and it was, I'd do it again, definitely. But it was,
Right.
it was definitely an experience. But yeah, I mean, it was just trying to catch the sheep to get them to go in the dip in the first place was the main problem. And then some of them were quite big, and you were getting knocked in there with them, and it's like, oh my God. It became quite messy at times, but there you go. So that is everything. Give us all your social media. Do you have like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those sort of things? What is your social media links?
Yeah, certainly. So my wife Emma does all the social media. So we have Facebook, which is Welsh Organic Tannery. We have Instagram, which is also Welsh Organic Tannery. And then on Twitter, we are Welsh Tannery. Because we are the only tannery in Wales. So we're fairly easy to find.
All right,
and obviously once the pandemic's over, and people are allowed to visit us again, then by appointment, if people are down here, we're happy to show people around.
It'd be nice to visit. So, I'd love to visit one day, definitely. So it's so I've got a few friends to go and see in Wales anyway, in southern Wales. So I mean, it's certainly worth it. But that's interesting. The only tannery in Wales.
Yes, we believe so. There is a just outside Cardiff. There's an industrial kind of a Welsh heritage museum called St Baggins, and basically there is an old tannery pit. Where they do some demonstration classes of tannering in old methods. But we haven't found any other working tanneries in Wales at this time.
And that's quite good. That's good, especially with it being quite new as well. It's good to see it coming along, definitely. So so there you go. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and it's certainly very interesting. I found it very interesting. That's why we've sort of gone off on tangent on other questions that we'd already got written down. So it's quite an interesting fact, especially the like I say, the difference between the sheep and tanning a cow sort of thing. And especially the weight. I didn't realise that they actually weighed so much. And obviously, you can imagine a bull is going to weigh substantially more. So it'd be quite a difficult thing to tan, definitely. So I agree with you. Stick with what you do, and like with any business, it's you find that niche, don't you? And you find that what works for you, and you, in effect, you're sort of, it's handmade, isn't it? Everything's almost sort of handmade, and you're inspecting every skin individually, and you're not having that massive volume production where you don't keep control of the quality, and that's what I like about it, and I think that's what the public will like as well, is the fact that you are keeping an eye on that quality and keeping the perfection there at all times. So yes, very good. Hat off to you, definitely. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. And
no worries at all. Great to meet you, Richard.
We'll get it all put up. Yeah, definitely. Very nice meeting you as well. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure. So that was Steve from the Welsh Organic Tannery. Thank you very much.